I, Margot G. Kay, the town clerk of the town of Morristown, do hereby state that it is 7:31 p.m. on Tuesday, December 1st, 2020, and that this meeting is being held remotely via webinar. Both adequate and electronic notice of this meeting were provided according to law by written notice to the Morristown Daily Record, the official newspaper of the town of Morristown, and to the Newark Star Ledger, both more than 48 hours ago. Notice was also posted in Town Hall and on the town website and filed with the office of the town clerk of the town of Morristown. I do further state that I shall enter into the minutes of this meeting a statement that such notice was furnished as particularly described by me in this public announcement. Councilman Elms.
Present.
Councilwoman Foster. Councilwoman Foster.
Shiva, you're muted.
Here.
Councilman Iannicone.
Here.
Councilman Mayor.
Here.
Councilman Silva.
Present.
Council President Armington.
Here.
Councilwoman Cotton is excused this evening. Mr. President, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Okay, so let's move along with the moment of silence.
I just
Followed
like
by
to,
the Pledge of Allegiance.
wait, what? Oh, Council
No, go ahead.
President. I'm sorry. I'd like to just acknowledge that I was made aware of in our community, we've had, whether it's been ruled as a suicide or whether it hasn't been, but we've had some tragedies in the Second Ward community. And so for Lavelle Mitchell, I like to have a moment of silence. There's another member of the community. They don't really know what and how it happened, but I like to, his name is Phil. I like to have a moment of silence for him as well. They did some kind of vigil in Manahan Village 2 nights ago, I believe. And so I just like to have a moment of silence for those two prominent members of our community. And so I'd like to just ask that we hold a moment of silence for them as well.
Okay, thank you, Toshiba, for that. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started, please be aware that public comment during the public hearing portions of this meeting will be moderated through the Zoom app at the appropriate time. Members of the public wishing to speak should indicate so by raising his or her hand in the app. You will find the raise your hand icon at the bottom left side of your screen. You may also raise your hand by pressing *9 on your phone. When it is your turn, the moderator will send a signal through the app and ask that you unmute yourself so that you may be heard. Please be advised that there were no comments received via email for tonight's meeting.
Margo.
Yes, sir.
No, thank you.
Oh, okay. There's one item on the consent agenda, approval of minutes of the September 22nd, 2020 regular town council meeting.
I'll move the consent agenda. You got a second?
I'll second.
Councilman Elms.
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster.
Yes.
Councilman Iannicone.
Yes.
Councilman Mayor.
Yes.
Councilman Silva.
Yes.
Council President Armington.
Yes.
Motion carries. At this time, I'll open the floor for a public hearing on any matter. Again, please raise your hand in the Zoom app to indicate that you would like to speak. If you have joined the meeting via telephone, again, press *9. Kindly state your name and address and limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. Be advised that any derogatory comments targeting members of council and or administration may be ruled out of order.
Councilman, the first public speaker is Susan Landau. Ms. Landau, if you would unmute yourself and state your name and address to the record, please.
Susan Landau, 128 James Street in Morristown.
Go ahead, Ms. Landau.
So I'm just here to represent Friends of Foots Pond Wood. There should be some other folks on, I hope. We're just here to give I know Sandy, Councilwoman Mayer read a statement for us at a previous meeting, but we wanted to kind of show up in person just to say thanks. We want to just give a brief hooray in person or as close to in person as we get these days. You know, the hydro raking was a great success, and the project was a dream for probably a decade before I moved into town, and it was really well run. It was, the finished result is gorgeous, and I just want to congratulate you all on a super efficient and effective use of those really precious funds. A lot of restoration was accomplished within your budget. So we just want to say thank you from Friends of Foots Pond Wood. Everybody is really enjoying the open water habitat. So thank you. That's all I have to say, but we really appreciate what you guys have pulled off here. It's been phenomenal.
Thank you, Ms. Landau.
Okay, the next public speaker is Carrie Lloyd. Carrie, if you would unmute yourself and state your name and address to the record, please.
Hi, everyone. Carrie Lloyd, 48 Georgian Road in Morristown. I just wanted to inform the council that I've applied for the expiring position on the Morristown Parking Authority Board and express my interest and although you can see my background and qualifications of serving the town and the community over the past 25 years in my application, just did want to reinforce my experience for 8 years on the zoning board of adjustments, both as a member, vice chair, chair, and managing a lot of the development that has come through that group over the last decade. And I believe my experience will bring a lot of value to the parking authority, given its role in really supporting the development along with managing a livable community that I've been a part of for 25, and my family has been part of for 25 plus years. So appreciate your support, and if anybody has any questions, feel free to let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd.
The next speaker is Greg Lombardi. Mr. Lombardi, if you would state your name and address to the record, please.
Greg Lombardi, 11 Overlook Road in Morristown. I just want to second the Susan's comments on Friends of Foots Pond. I see a lot of people. I'm right on Overlook, so one of the entrances or the exits is on Overlook, and I see so many people with smiles on their face and just raving about Friends of Foots Pond. So I just want to say thanks to everyone here on this Zoom talk that what you've done, and really it's amazing the smiles that are coming through. So appreciate that. Thanks, everyone.
Councilman, I don't see any other hands raised for public comment.
Okay, thank you. Council responses to public hearing?
I'd like to say thanks to the Friends of Foots Pond. You're thanking us, but I want to thank them because they have done an incredible job of cleaning out the invasives in that park and planting wildflowers and just cleaning up the site, removing invasive species and vines, and they're just never ending on helping and contributing to our community. And a big thank you to all of you. You really do make a difference in that park, and we're so happy that everybody is enjoying it, and it is a beautiful park. So thank you for the administration for the hydro raking, but the Friends of Foots Pond and all the people that visit the park and keep it beautiful, thank you to you.
I'd also like to pipe in and, on that subject. I think the mayor has really supported this effort in a concerted effort throughout the last 6 years or so. as well as the prior Councilwoman Allison Deeb, who, though she was a nag, she was extremely supportive of this and continued. She wouldn't take no for an answer, and a lot of this would not have been done without her support on the council. So kudos to all involved.
And I agree, Council President, and I just like to acknowledge Councilwoman Sandy Mayers for just, coming in, being so newly fresh on the board and just really kind of carrying the torch and just making sure that, the residents of Foots Pond and, that area is being represented, and just being a voice for the community, not only just for the residents there, but just, your voice on the council. And so I just thank you and I appreciate you for all that you're doing, and you as well, Council President. And so thank you all for everything that you have done to kind of carry the torch and, help this, this part of Foots Pond, kind of carry on.
Thanks.
Thank you. If there are no more comments, let's move on to Mayor's proclamations and presentations.
Okay, thank you, Council President. Hope everyone had a nice, calm Thanksgiving. Before I read this into the record, thank you, Council President, for those kind words on how long it takes to get something done. It does take years to get organizations like the County Trust and like Land of Public Trust and different organizations that put these things together, council. But the administration, as far as Jillian Barrick, is the one who has to keep it tied together, and the continued push and all the meetings and the residents. And we saw Sandy and I were down, Councilwoman Meyer and I were down today dealing with an issue on Overlook, and ran into Susan hooking her dog. It is a place that is really fully being enjoyed by the public. But the amount of work that goes in to make this happen, the funds from different agencies, it really is, as they say, I don't use this term often, a village to get things done. And there was a lot of people involved, and too many to just sit here and talk about it. But the business administrator has a large job to do in keeping all these things moving in a direction. And I'm very, very glad you showed the respect to former Councilwoman Allison Deeb, because it was something that she pushed year after year after year, and it just takes that long to get done. So on top of all the agencies that helped put this together, the Foots Pond group, the council, the business administrator, the lawyers, is a whole bunch of people involved to make this happen. So, when people all work in the same direction, it clearly shows that you can get positive things done that have nothing to do with politics. That it's just good for the community. And that's what we did. And so you all should take a bow for that, because you're all involved in it. And that shows true leadership from everyone that puts, that doesn't oppose it for any political sake, and just get something that's good, protect the environment. Another 11 acres of open space in Morristown, a 2.9 square mile town. You all should be very proud of what you've accomplished and what our administration has accomplished working together. So kudos to all. All right, proclamation. This is a proclamation on World Pancreatic Cancer Day. We've done this. I've done this numerous times, so I just want to read it into the record, and it'll be here to be picked up. Whereas in 2020, an estimated 57,600 people in the United States will be diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, one of the deadliest cancers, and 47,050 will die from this disease. Pancreatic cancer is one of the deadliest cancers. It currently is the third leading cause of cancer death in the United States, and it is projected to become the second leading cause within the next 5 years. Pancreatic cancer has the lowest survival rate among all major cancers, with a 5-year relative survival rate of just 10%, and accounts for about 7% of all cancer deaths. When symptoms of pancreatic cancer present themselves, it is generally in late stages, and only 10% of pancreatic cancer patients are diagnosed when the disease is confirmed to their pancreas. 90% of the pancreatic cancer patients die within the first 5 years. Approximately 1,340 deaths will occur in New Jersey in 2020. And pancreatic cancer is the 7th most common cause of cancer-related death across the world. And there will be more than an estimated 500 million new pancreatic cancer cases diagnosed worldwide in 2025, a yearly increase of 3%. The good health and well-being of the residents of Morristown are enhanced as a direct result of increased awareness about pancreatic cancer and research into early detection, causes, and effective treatments. Now, therefore, I, Timothy P. Daugherty, Mayor of the Town of Morristown, do hereby proclaim November 19th, 2020 as World Pancreatic Cancer Day in the Town of Morristown. And I thank all the people that continue to push this forward to keep it in the front lines. As you all remember, 2 years ago, I lost my friend Peter from pancreatic cancer. It was quick, and it is a very debilitating cancer. It eats you away to nothing. So thank you for bringing this to our attention. And you can come pick up the proclamation in its frame at the office of the mayor. Thank you very much. Just a couple of quick notes. On Friday the 13th, the M Station groundbreaking ceremony took place. On Tuesday the 24th, Adopt a Business kickoff. It is adoptabusinessmorristown.org. It is a kickoff to try to help small businesses in Morristown try to get through the winter, trying to get their winter rents paid. Some are already collecting money. I think we're up to somewhere in the mid 30s, thousands of dollars. So we have a long way to go to get where we want to get, but we're trying to get that message out as far as we can. We're going to be creating a Facebook page for Adopt a Business, and we hope that people everywhere can that are working, that have some funds, can contribute to help these businesses stay alive during the winter, because we all see the COVID-19 explosion throughout the country. There's an article out about what the percentage of small businesses have closed already in this country, and it's very high. So it's important that we can do everything we can as a community to try to help our businesses. Upcoming events: Thursday, December 10th, 5 p.m., Hanukkah lighting and celebration in front of Town Hall. It's organized by Rabbi Gurevitz of the Rabbinical College. I will be here. Anybody who wants to come attend, it'll be a much smaller event than they would have on the Green. The Green is not giving out permits to any organization to do anything. And so we're going to let them do a small portable tree and menorah and have the celebration of Hanukkah. On Sunday, the 13th, and that's, mark your calendars, and please get it out into your neighborhoods and into your email chains. Sunday, the 13th, from noon to 4, Santa will be visiting wards 1, Mr. Iacone, and 3, Mr. Armington. Noon to 4, via the fire truck. So the Fire Bureau will be bringing around Santa. The rain date for that is the 12th, 12/12. So it's Sunday, the 13th, wards 1 and wards 3. Sunday, the 20th, 5 days before Christmas, obviously Santa's got a lot of work to do. He will be in wards 2 and 4 via the Morristown Fire Bureau truck. And rain date is 12/19 for that. So September 20th, 2nd and 4th wards, Sunday the 13th, 1st and 3rd. Just get your messages out. A couple other things. There was we had some issues of flooding, which I brought to engineers' attention a while ago. I know they've been working on it. They are giving me updates, and they are aware that there's a flooding issue in the back of some of those houses down by Whole Foods and Bud Street Park. So they are working on it. We will get a notice out to the residents in that area on what is the fix and how long it's going to take and what we have to do, etc. There's a number of things engineering is working on, but that's definitely at top of the list. Also, we got a complaint about some leaves. Always this time of the year, a whole block will put out leaves except one house. And then one house, maybe somebody was away or they couldn't get to it. And now you have a street that has a big pile of leaves on it. Feel free to call 973-292-6670 if leaves haven't been picked up. They are continuing to work out. They have a number of crews out there picking up leaves. It's a great benefit to our residents that they come and pick them up. So they will get them. Don't worry. You can always call my office too, the mayor's office at 973-292-6629. But don't hesitate 1 minute to call DPW and let them know there's a pile of leaves on the street they didn't get yet. It always helps them to know where everybody's at, and it's good to do. But don't worry, they will get all the leaves. They do it every year. They do a great job. DPW did also a great job on clearing sewer grates with that storm we had the other night. And I'll just mention that briefly. The end of November, to have a storm like that, warm weather, thunder, wind, lightning, it's almost like the dog days of August. So it's really interesting to watch these weather patterns. And now if you go outside, it's like in the 30s and it's really cold. So the weather's a little crazy. So just watch where you're walking as it gets cold, leaves get slippery. And then the final thing I have to say is the COVID issue that's going on. We had another 12 positives from yesterday. We had 45 over the holiday weekend from Thursday to Monday. It is, hitting us hard in Morristown. It's everywhere. So people, please, I can't mandate wearing a mask, but I'm advising everybody, if you're out in town in Morristown, to put a mask on. I'd like to mandate, but I can't. So please wear your mask, wash your hands, and stay distance when, social distance where it's appropriate. Please do not attend large gatherings. As we're getting into these colder months, this is probably going to increase. I know that there's a vaccine coming out. There's talk about it all the time. But healthcare workers, elderly, Bob might have, Mr. Anico may have more information on how the vaccine is going to be distributed, but it looks like healthcare workers first, which makes sense. But a report I saw tonight, we may be in the mask and in this type of mode of living till next fall. So, we just got to bear with it. And the final thing is, I don't want to not thank two organizations, the Environmental Commission and the Shade Tree Commission, for their assistance and help down in Foots Pond. Like I said before, it's been years and everybody's contributed. But I just wanted to make sure that we, there's so many organizations. Didn't want to forget two of the ones that are important for Morristown. That's our Shade Tree and Environmental Commission. So thank you all. Hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving, and now it's back to business until Christmas. Thank you, Council President.
You're on mute, Stefan.
Stefan, you there?
You're on mute.
Stefan.
All right, there you go. Sorry.
There you go. That's it for me.
I believe we have a presentation from Verizon. Right.
And then we have a presentation, correct?
Yes, from Verizon on the 5G technology.
Yes, Brian Klein from Verizon will be leading the presentation.
Wait, look,
Yes.
can I just ask one question? Maybe I missed it. Are we not doing, did I miss the council liaison reports, or are we going to do this and then have council liaison reports?
Yes, that's the council liaison reports is after the presentation.
Okay, sounds good.
Take it away, Mr. Klein.
All right. Good evening, Council. Jillian, did you want me to go ahead and share my screen so I can show the presentation?
If you'll introduce the other people that are with you first, and then you can share your screen, please.
Okay, absolutely, will do. So again, my name is Brian Klein with Verizon Wireless. We're going to make a short presentation this evening about small cell and 5G technology. With me tonight, I have Kevin Jones, who is an attorney for Verizon, and Andrew Peterson, who is an outside consultant for us that specializes in radio frequency compliance. So we have, again, a brief presentation. I'll go ahead and share the screen, and we're going to let Kevin kick the presentation off, if that's okay.
Okay. Thank you for that, Brian, and thank you, Council and Mayor, for having us here tonight. As many of you already know, Verizon Wireless, the nation's largest FCC licensed carrier, is in the process of upgrading and enhancing its network throughout the town of Morristown. And to do this, Verizon is going to develop small cell nodes located within the public right-of-way. You may recall back in 2016, just about 4 years ago, December 15th, the council passed a resolution which authorized Verizon to install these small cells on existing utility poles owned by third-party carriers. The next step here would be to adopt a resolution which would allow Verizon to not only install their small cells on the existing infrastructure, but also install, remove, and replace existing poles with Verizon-owned poles. For instance, municipal lights and municipal-owned infrastructure to facilitate the build. We worked this out. We talked with Vij and Joni, your legal team, and we have drafted and I believe approved on both sides an amendment. That would be the next step. But tonight we're here just to tell you about this small cell deployment. And right now I'll pass it back to Brian, who's going to lead you through the virtual deck that we provided, and he's now sharing the screen.
Yes. So rather than read these slides to you, I'm sure you all have or have seen a copy of this or could get a copy of this, but really what we're showing here is kind of, you know, why we're here and why we need this. So what's driving this small cell technology is the explosive use in data on the wireless network. We need these small cell sites to bring the highest level of capacity and coverage possible down close to the user in order to continue to have the bandwidth available now and tomorrow for this explosive use of data. There's some additional statistics in here, you know, really about how we go about our business in finding locations. What drives these is our radio frequency engineers will let the team, the wireless network team, know where there is a need for one of these locations. We go out and try to find existing structures wherever possible. Existing structures in kind of a hierarchy would be your wooden utility poles owned by the third parties that Kevin mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. And down into the second and third options would be lighting structures, both standard structures and decorative structures. And then in situations where there is not an existing structure, the need would arise for us to place a new pole on the ground.
Hey, Brian,
yes,
if I can interrupt you, it would be really helpful if you could go to full screen mode.
Sure. Sorry about that.
If you go up to view on the upper left.
Huh?
And full screen mode.
Excuse me.
There we
Did
go.
that show up?
Yes, it did. Thank you. That's easier to see now.
Great. All right. So what I want to get into is pretty much, you know, what exactly we're proposing and where we need to do these. So Verizon has 50 locations that we are proposing. I've broken them out on a aerial map showing in a color code, yellow being utility poles where we would need to either attach to an existing utility pole or would propose a new one in an area of the town that would be appropriate because other overhead utilities are in place. The light bluish color would be public lighting structures, which would be your standard Cobra head style lights. And then the purple being stealth poles, what we call stealth poles. Those are kind of a decorative structure where the equipment can be fully contained within or attached to. And I have some photo simulations a little bit further in the deck that I'll present to you. This is showing the breakdown specific to the utility poles, the lighting structures, and the stealth poles. We've also included a list view here for the council to see exactly the geographic coordinates and nearest street address of the locations of our proposed sites. That's broken down again by utility pole, lighting structure, and stealth pole. So in terms of design, as I mentioned, we're going to show some photo simulations here. We've proposed the site, again, to match the existing streetscape as much as possible. Where there are overhead utilities, we propose to use the existing wood poles or install a new pole if there is not a suitable pole available. The heights on these are limited to as low as possible. 50 feet is the allowable per the FCC. However, we try to keep that as low as we can, especially in terms of your downtown area where aesthetics is a much more concern. And again, we have that option to conceal our equipment within a pole to achieve the aesthetic balance I think we're all looking for here. So the first option I'm showing is the utility poles. So what you're seeing here in the foreground of the photo is a new utility pole. On the top of the pole is the antenna apparatus. Both 4G and 5G technology are deployed here. About halfway up the pole is an equipment box. That houses our radio and other ancillary equipment. And then just below that, which may be difficult to see, is a power meter and a disconnect switch. Those are all the components of a small cell site. Next photo is showing where there's an existing utility pole, but we would proposing to replace that pole. In this case being the pole may be a little low or is not structurally suitable. Same equipment attached in this photo. The next option is what we're calling in this presentation a public lighting structure. This is a standard Cobra head luminaire arm style light. At the top of this, the antenna apparatus that you saw on the previous wood utility pole is contained in a antenna shroud. That's the kind of taller cylindrical piece at the top. What's a little difficult to see, and it's kind of hidden by the branches here, but that's where the equipment cabinet is. And then again, we would need the power meter and the disconnect switch. That would be a little bit lower on the pole. This next option, you can see the cylindrical apparatus is a bit larger. And then at the base of the pole, there's a larger area, and that is containing or concealing the equipment, ancillary equipment I mentioned, as well as the power meter and the disconnect switch. So that can be deployed in areas that, you know, a little bit nicer look in some places. And the next few here are the stealth poles that I mentioned. This is showing on the left an existing decorative luminaire. On the right is showing a replacement structure with the equipment mounted at the top, the equipment cabinet in the middle, and then the disconnect switch and meter towards the bottom. This next photo, as you see, again, the cylinder is a bit larger. There's a larger base at the bottom, and you can see the equipment is concealed within that portion of the pole. Just another photograph showing pretty much the same installation here with the equipment attached to the pole and then the equipment concealed within. And then the last photo I have here is a photo simulation of South Street in town. This is a double luminaire stealth pole. At the bottom of this pole, we're concealing all of the equipment. At the top, the antenna is contained within the antenna shroud. With that, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Andy Peterson. Andy Peterson is going to make a brief presentation about RF safety and compliance.
Good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Yes, Andy.
Okay. Good. Good evening. Yeah, I don't want to read a bunch of slides to everyone, but please stop me if there's questions. I'll kind of just go through some of the high notes on the safety and compliance. The energy that these facilities use, it's the same RF energy that has been used now since Marconi first received his first transmission in the 1890s. The bells and whistles have changed along the way, and those bells and whistles really live on the ends of the radio frequency channel. That allows us to do the high data throughput and voice calling and all the other features that folks use their wireless devices for. But where the rubber meets the road really is that RF channel, and that's been the same, for hundreds of years. The frequencies have changed, and power outputs and things of that nature, and multiplexing and the air interface. As I said, where the rubber meets the road and how radio frequency energy affects the human body, that hasn't changed. The physics of that has not changed. So the energy that all the devices that are mentioned in this slide, Wi-Fi routers, baby monitors, Bluetooth, it's really all the same energy that has been used now for a while. Brian, can we go back up to the slide before? This is an interesting slide. It just compares mobile phones and small cells, for that matter, to some other well-known devices as far as exposure goes. So exposure is given in power density, microwatts per centimeter squared. It's basically a field density measurement. That's the measuring stick that the FCC uses when we talk about exposure. You can see the small cells, which is at the very bottom here, in comparison to the allowable exposure, which is 1,000 microwatts per centimeter squared. We're typically at about 0.5 microwatt per centimeter squared, so about 2,000 times below the FCC allowable exposure limit. You can compare that to the other widely used devices here, and see that we are on the low end, actually, relatively speaking, of exposure versus allowable exposure. And that's because these are intentionally very low power devices. We're not trying to cover a whole lot of area with these devices. Generally about 1,000-foot radius is what we can expect as far as coverage goes. So that really limits the power that we need or that we want to transmit from these facilities. They're more of a surgical solution to offload capacity from a very specific area. Typically, as I said, about 1,000 square foot, 1,000 feet in radius. Can we go to the next slide, Brian? So, of course, as you closer to the small cell, the exposure level increases slightly until you get well underneath the small cell, and then it will actually decrease just because of the antenna patterns used. But you can see that peak given here, and this again is for a typical small cell. The peak exposure is generally about the distance away from the small cell as the antennas are mounted. So in this case, about 25 feet we peak. So our antennas in this example are probably mounted at about 25 feet, and that's typical. Can we go to the next slide? So there's a lot of myths, particularly around 5G. We've probably heard a lot of things, and of course you can find anything on the internet that you'd like these days. However, what I'd encourage folks to do who are interested in learning this about 5G in particular, and how that differs or really doesn't differ from previous iterations of this technology, is to look at some reputable websites, and we have some listed. But really the underlying fact here is that the FCC took a hard look at these standards, and in particular, if those needed adjustment with the advent of 5G. And in December 2019, the FCC reaffirmed the RF safety standards that applied to earlier wireless technologies. They basically looked at the research and decided that those standards were still in fact valid for 5G. And that stands to reason based on what I've told you all earlier. In fact, I would have been surprised if they had changed anything. There's some other interesting facts in here. If we could skip to the next slide. One question I get a lot is with kids and the elderly, is 5G or RF more dangerous to those segments of the population? Of course, the answer is no. These standards have a healthy margin built in, and they're designed to protect everyone, including children and the elderly folks who may be in declining health, et cetera. So that's really all I have on RF safety. Well, one thing I'll add is each and every facility that would be proposed in Morristown will be examined on an individual basis by a professional engineer, and signed and sealed report will be supplied that demonstrates compliance to that individual small cell before that facility can be activated. So there is no blanket study to cover all types of scenarios. We will look at them individually, and that design or that report will be furnished to Morristown. So here's kind of a summary with some links to some reputable sites, including the FCC site. American Cancer Society also has a good bit of information, but the upshot here is that these facilities are not any different from what we've looked at over the past 20 years or so, the macro sites. The real difference here is that they're smaller, and generally they're closer to where people live and work. And I think that's really why people have been concerned about them, just because they're more proximate. However, because they're more proximate, we're not trying to cover as wide of a radius as we did 5 years ago with the macro sites, so they're intentionally scaled power. So the net is exposure levels that are really on par with the macro sites of past decades. I'll take any questions that anyone might have on this stuff.
Yeah, maybe before we do that, Andy, just to conclude, I did want to advise the council that Verizon has gone ahead and produced a website that is specific to Morristown that can be used by council members, planning staff, other town staff as they get inquiries and questions from the general public that they can be directed to, that would basically be the home for all of these safety slides that we shared today, as well as some additional information, a general educational video, and then as the project progresses, we can share construction schedules and timelines through the website to use. That we found as a good vehicle for getting information out to the public quickly. And Kevin, if you have anything else to add?
Well, I mentioned the next step being the amendment to the existing right-of-way use agreement that was adopted back in 2016. And again, we worked out the details with Beach and Joni in terms of the agreement itself, in terms of the one-time payment to the municipality for the review of this agreement. The next step would be to move forward with a resolution adopting and authorizing Verizon to move forward in that respect. But at this point, I think we can open it up to any questions that you may have, and we'd be happy to answer them.
Council President, if I could just ask for clarification from Brian on a couple of things. My recollection from our earlier conversations, Brian, is that the 50 cell nodes that you're presenting tonight is the first of 3 phases. Is that correct?
I will have to get back to you on that, Jillian. I am not entirely sure, as these things are kind of fluid. I know that there are 50 right now that we have in our general line of sight. I can supplement some additional information. I'll need to find that out, though.
But this is intended to be the first of more than one phase, so there would be additional cells coming in the future.
Potentially so, yes. You know, again, as technology evolves, as data use continues to grow, I think it is likely to assume that there would be some additional projects down the road, yes.
And this is infrastructure for Verizon only, so there's potential if there's other vendors like, for example, T-Mobile, Sprint, with similar technology, they would have separate types of infrastructure similar to this that would not be coterminous with yours. Is that also accurate?
Yeah, that's accurate. There are some scenarios where infrastructure can be shared. However, you know, there is no guarantees that Verizon's network is the same as our competitors, and our needs are different, you know, based on the technologies we use, frequencies we use, things like that. So generally, yes, each node is specific to that wireless carrier or provider.
So that's similar to the sort of larger cell facilities we see now, where you would have kind of like one box for Verizon, one box for Sprint, one box for AT&T, and they're all sort of separate pieces of infrastructure. So this would be potentially something similar where you would have your 50 or plus facilities, and then Sprint and or AT&T and or another company could potentially come in with similar infrastructure that's on separate poles or separate equipment. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think that's an accurate statement, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
So Jillian, what you're saying is those poles that might potentially replace the partnership lights are going to be replaced with these Verizon poles, but then other companies could come in and replace different light poles for on the streets. Are they all going to match? I mean, is it going to look haphazard? It just seems a little.
So if I may interrupt, Council President?
Sure.
Obviously, this presentation is going to be new for all the council, and you could spend the next few hours asking questions. I may suggest that you have a committee that meets with the administration, that we post this on our website, so the public can see it, and then we can have a discussion. I appreciate Verizon's coming here and giving you the same presentation that we got, but I think we need some internal conversation before we start spending the next couple hours asking questions.
I agree.
Stefan,
who would like to be part of this committee?
Stefan, if we don't spend time on it tonight with the public, will we have another opportunity to discuss this before it's final?
Absolutely.
Yes, I will be part of the committee, and ideally we will. Well, Mr. Klein, what is your timetable for a desired timetable?
Well, I'd be lying to you if I said we didn't want to build these as soon as possible. But
today, Council President.
Yeah, today is too late. But all kidding aside, I mean, we are extremely interested in getting this deployed as soon as possible. It's something that we certainly have earmarked for our build plan for next year, and we, you know, this takes some time in terms of, you know, once the resolution is in place, we of course need to secure all of our building permits, all of our local right-of-way permits, for example. You know, if we needed to go visit Morris County, if there was a location that's actually in their right-of-way, even though the town still needs to consent to it, there still may be some entitlements there. So there is some groundwork left to do. But in terms of timeline, yeah, as soon as possible.
If I could just ask one question, and this is a general question. So I assume you've gone to other municipalities, and presumably, you know, the other municipalities, you know, are not endorsing Verizon per se, but want to provide free enterprise. How is that sort of resolved, between the multiple carriers in your experience? Does Verizon go in, build a bunch of build their infrastructure, and then AT&T, and then Sprint, and then the council is sort of knocking heads of should we have provided some sort of competitive process or just that's just a question right off the bat. Do you have any experience?
I can maybe,
Kevin, jump in there if you would.
Yeah, I can address that for you. Some of obviously the infrastructure is limited. They're shorter structures, but many of the structures that we showed in the pictures today offer multi-carrier solutions. So there are the opportunities to have multiple carriers for existing, for example, say AT&T needed to site at the same space as Verizon. There's the opportunity to co-locate both sites. By co-location, I mean have two carrier facilities on the same pole. So that is the opportunity in some places, sometimes on a single wood pole. The public utility through which Verizon has a pole attachment agreement with would only allow one carrier. But some of those Cobra light poles and those structures do provide the opportunity for a multi-carrier solution. Maybe Brian can go back to a couple of those pictures. But clearly, and we've done that in other towns. Recently, we're doing, if you've ever been to downtown Princeton, there are a few multi-carrier poles right in the downtown Palmer Square area and right off of Witherspoon Street, just for an example. And we can provide you with some photos of that if you'd like to see what they look like, but they'd be similar to the structure that you see in this picture right here.
Yeah, I would just caution that in theory, yes, it is similar, Mr. Armington, but what you will find is that they would need to be taller, and they would also need to have additional base in that bottom section of the pole, which would mean the diameter would be wider. So it's kind of a balance that I suppose the town is going to need to consider. I appreciate if you find that trade-off valuable or not.
Yeah, but Stefan, maybe for the charge for this subcommittee in working with the administration and the mayor, to avoid multiple towers and as they could become an eyesore. I think we should also be exploring opportunities such as, do you do some kind of sole contract or some alternative to maybe town-wide Wi-Fi, for example. We've explored this in the past. Maybe it's time to explore that again. Maybe Morristown taking a lead on this so that you avoid overbuilding and infrastructure. Maybe the subcommittee can look at that also.
Ideas. So can I get a couple people who would like to participate with me?
I'll join you. I'm Stefan.
Bob, would you like to participate?
Sure.
Anyone else? Sandy?
I'll participate, Stefan.
I lost my, that's great. Thank you very much.
I'll do it,
so let's try to, fantastic. Okay. So Councilwoman Mayor Yannicka and I will create a subcommittee and let's try to talk this week and then we can set up a meeting with administration next week to flesh out our questions and ideas.
And Stefan, just when that picture's up right now, I would also suggest Verizon, you talk to the Morristown Partnership.
Oh,
I believe those decorative lights are actually maintained by the partnership.
Yes,
and,
they are.
They want to maintain the integrity of that lighting.
Has the administration been approached by any other company asking for this technology to be installed in Morristown? Or is this the first and only?
I have not. I don't know if Jillian has. I have not.
We have not. Verizon is the first.
Do we anticipate other companies?
I would anticipate other companies.
Yes.
Sure. I certainly would.
So.
Yeah.
Council President, I have shared this presentation with
All
Margo.
right, gentlemen, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Will send it to us?
Go ahead, Julian.
I will send it out until tomorrow.
Yes, I shared it with Margo so she can get it out to everyone.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Klein and others. Good luck to you in your endeavors, and I'm sure we'll be reaching out to you shortly.
All right, thank you very much. We stand ready to assist wherever we're needed here in terms of questions from the committee. So
thank you.
Feel free to reach out to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, moving on to council liaison reports.
Stefan, the Morristown Partnership did meet week before last. There was discussion with reference to the beer, wine, and cider license proposal being entertained by the state. It's not going to be a municipal matter, at least for now. But there's a lot of discussion on that, basically more financial related to people with liquor licenses. But probably it's a concern of both the people with liquor licenses and the people without liquor licenses and people trying to stay viable during these tough times. I think the partnership has done a great job in terms of remote Santa and socially distanced Santa. I think in addition to the efforts that the town is having in terms of getting Santa out to the communities, their socially distanced Santa program, I think, is welcome. And I think the green, for some reason this year, looks nicer than usual. I think they've done a great job with that. The other discussion item that was there, it was prompted by the partnership itself, was the possibility of the zoning ordinance with reference to marijuana and the legalization of such. The discussion was interesting. It was very similar to what I'm hearing from the community. One, people do want access, and two, generally want access. You know, there's people who are against it, but people do want access. And the second is that they do not believe that it should be in the downtown business district, where there's other entertainment establishments. They do understand that the town is eventually going to be entertaining an ordinance considering the same, and there'll be proper controls in place. But it was a good, healthy conversation. It's nice to have their input.
Thank you, Bob. Anyone else?
MHA, I want to highlight from the executive director's report the next step in the RAD process to conduct an update meeting with HUD is called a concept call. Of that meeting, financial plan, operations, and construction scope and timing will be discussed. After that call, there will be a third round of meetings with residents to deal with outstanding issues, and then preparation for construction in the spring. As MHA did in the past, they will be providing translation services in Spanish and Russian to prepare for those meetings. There was an emphasis at the executive director's report that to keep in mind that number of the resident population is Spanish speaking, and is 42%. And HUD relentlessly seeks that diversity of the resident body must be reflected in how public housing agencies operate and interact with the residents and the general public. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
I'll go for Shade Tree. The Shade Tree Commission is working on a parks report. Each of the Shade Tree commissioners took the time, a lot of time, to walk around all of our parks and do a comprehensive report on the status of invasive species, took pictures. We are having a special meeting next Tuesday on Zoom at 7 o'clock for the Shade Tree Commission to discuss the next step in presenting this to each of the council members so they know what's going on in their parks, in their wards, and in their community. So if anybody wants to join us, you can, but I will definitely be giving a report on that.
Thank you, Sandy. Okay, let's move on to regular business.
Didn't Toshiba want to give a report from parking?
No one is required to do it if they don't have it.
I thought she said something before.
We have two ordinances for introduction.
Yes, sir. We have ordinance number O-39-2020, an ordinance of the town of Morristown, county of Morris, state of New Jersey, accepting dedication of land within the town of Morristown.
I'll make a motion to introduce.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions?
Jillian, this in the next ordinance, this is the property for the park? What is?
Yes, this is the property for the park.
Okay.
Okay, on the introduction of ordinance O-39-2020, Councilman Elms,
Yes.
Councilman Foster? Councilman Foster? I'll come back. Councilman Iannicone?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fair?
Yes.
Councilman Silva?
Yes.
Council President Armington?
Yes.
Council President Foster, are you there?
Move on to that.
We have a quorum and that motion carries. It was properly, I'm sorry, O-39-2020 was properly introduced by title and will be considered further after a public hearing on December 15th. Ordinance O-40-2020, ordinance of the town of Morristown vacating a 16-foot wide right-of-way along the northerly property line of block 6003, lot 14, pursuant to and in accordance with NJSA 40:67-1 sec.
I'll make a motion to introduce.
Second.
Any comments or questions?
I have a question. I noticed in the correspondence that they were looking for a cost. Was there any cost to the town for this, or how is this working? They were offering to pay, or?
The property owner where the right of way is being vacated had paid a sum to the town in exchange for the town extinguishing its rights to the right of way.
Beej, you want to update?
Is that the same cost that? Go ahead,
No,
Mr.
so
Mayor.
the property owner will pay the town $50,000 for the town to vacate the this right of way.
And that's more than what we paid to obtain it several years ago in the past?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, on the introduction of ordinance O-40-2020, Councilman Elms.
All right, what?
I'll move it.
Oh, sorry. I'll second it. I thought we moved it.
We did. On the introduction of ordinance O-40-2020, Councilman Elms.
Yes.
Councilman Foster. Welcome back. Councilman Iannicone.
Yes.
Councilman Mayor.
Yes.
Councilman Silva.
Yes.
Council President Armington.
Yes.
Councilman Foster, are you there? Okay, motion carries. Ordinance O-40-2020 has been introduced properly by title and will be considered further after public hearing on December 15th. We have one ordinance for public hearing and adoption this evening. That's ordinance O-38-2020. An ordinance amending and supplementing the code of the town of Morristown, Chapter 7, Traffic, Section 40.2, handicap parking on streets for private residences, to add a dedicated handicap parking space for a resident of 51 Lake Road.
I'll make a motion to adopt O-38-2020.
I'll
Second.
second.
Okay, I'll now open the floor for a public hearing on ordinance O-38-2020. Please be reminded that you must raise your hand in the Zoom app or press *9 on your telephone to indicate that you would like to speak. Please state your name and address and limit your comments to 5 minutes or less.
Councilman, I don't see any hands raised.
Thank you. We'll close the public hearing.
Comments or questions from council? Okay, on the adoption of ordinance O-38-2020, Councilman Elms,
Yes.
Councilman Foster, Councilman Iannicone,
Yes.
Councilman Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Silva,
Yes.
Council President Armington,
Yes.
Councilman Foster. Motion carries. Ordinance O-38-2020 is adopted. There are 9 resolutions on the agenda for adoption this evening. Would any member of council like to pull one or more for separate consideration?
Margot, can I pull 175, please?
Certainly. Anyone else?
I believe 182 also.
Okay. I would therefore ask for a motion to adopt resolutions 176, 2020 through 181, 2020, and 183, 2020, and MAS.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
On the adoption of those resolutions, Councilman Ohms,
Yes.
Councilman Foster, Councilman Anacone,
Yes.
Councilman Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Silva,
Yes.
Council President Armington,
Yes.
Councilman Foster. Motion carries. Resolutions 176, 2020 through 181, 2020, and 183, 2020 are adopted. Resolution R 175, 2020, resolution extending temporary suspension of certain provisions within Chapter 4, Section 5 of the Town Code entitled Sidewalk Cafes. May I have a motion to adopt?
I'll move it.
I'll make a
Second.
motion to adopt R 175, 2020.
Okay. Councilman Anacone.
Generally, I have no issue with extending the outdoor cafes. I think administration's done a very good job in managing the whole process and ensuring the safety of the town. However, in the therefore here, the term of this, because really what we're doing is delegating authority that usually sometimes sits with council. We're delegating the authority to administration, but in the resolution itself, the period of time reads, continue to have the authority to permit the existing restaurants to expand outdoor dining through 2021, no specific time in 2021, and until Governor Murphy lifts the occupancy restrictions on indoor dining. Just a couple of comments. Is it an and or is it an or? Because it's through a period of time till the restrictions are lifted.
It's an and.
It's an and. So we're asking for this right. Shouldn't it then be just until the restrictions are lifted? Otherwise, we're delegating through 2021.
I think it says the same thing. Because it's an and, you need both. So until if the Governor Murphy lifts the occupancy restrictions and there's no state of a state of emergency.
I would think it would be or
yeah.
Because it's if he doesn't lift the emergencies, then the delegation of authority to the business administrator is through the end of 2021. If they do, then that becomes the time frame of which it's removed.
I see.
And
Tony, do you know what the past resolution said? Because I know you.
Well, the past resolution had a specific date. We didn't have a specific date in mind, which is why we left it more open-ended.
Would it be appropriate to make a motion to amend the ordinance to say or? Would that satisfy the?
Yeah, I think the or makes it seem like you get it through 2021 or.
Well, it's the later of, actually. It's the later
of. There you go.
It's actually the later of, and otherwise it is the later of.
The earlier of.
The earlier of.
Correct.
Right.
Earlier of is the right.
Yeah. Right, John.
All right. So I would like to make a motion to withdraw my resolution, my support for it, and change my motion to amend the adopted resolution 175 with the language as so stated by Council McDonald. The earlier of.
Yes, I think it should be the earlier of either the end of 2021 or when Governor Murphy lifts the occupancy restrictions on indoor dining.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, on the adoption of Resolution 175, 2020 as amended, Councilman Elms,
Yes.
Councilman Foster, Councilman Iannicone,
Yes.
Councilman Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Silva,
Yes.
Council President Armington,
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster. Motion carries. Resolution 175, 2020 is adopted. Resolution 182-2020, a resolution authorizing the issuance of one or more series of non-recourse redevelopment area bonds of the town of Morristown in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $8,800,000 for the Morristown Station project. May I have a motion to adopt?
I'll make a motion to adopt R 182, 2020.
I'll second.
Council President?
Yeah, so I just want to separate this out because this is specifically to approve the issuance of the RAD bonds for the M station. We have Mr. Jessup here to ask him to respond to any questions if there are any, or we can just move forward with the vote. All right. Sorry, Mr.
I think that for the benefit of the residents, it will be good if Matthew will give a brief explanation of those bonds. We know that we went over and over and over and over with them, but it is good for the record.
Thank you. Well said.
Sure. Thank you, Council President, Council, Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having us. This bond resolution authorizes not to exceed $8.8 million of non-recourse redevelopment area bonds. Those bonds are being issued to fund various, primarily various infrastructure improvements and some project improvements with respect to that redevelopment project. Non-recourse redevelopment area bonds means that these are not bonds paid for by the town through the town's budget, through the town's tax base. These bonds will be secured solely by payments in lieu of taxes or annual service charges that are being paid by the developer of this redevelopment project to secure the bonds. So there is no town pledge and no impact to the tax base of the town. The financing did require the review and approval of the local finance board, which is a state agency that's required to review certain types of municipal financings in New Jersey. And they approved, they provided their approvals unanimously. The entire board unanimously approved this financing at the last meeting of the local finance board. So we have our state approval. The bond resolution here authorizes the issuance of the bonds. It also approves certain agreements that are executed in connection with the issuance of the bonds, namely a trust indenture, which is essentially the contract between the bondholders, the trustee for the benefit of the bondholders, and the town. And that governs the provisions of the bonds. It governs the provision of repayment of the bonds. There's also a pledge and assignment agreement. That document takes the pledged annual service charges that are being paid by the redeveloper and ensures that they basically go by contract directly to the trustee for the benefit of bondholders, so that the bondholders know they're getting that revenue stream paid effectively directly to them. And then finally, there's a funding agreement that's also approved by this bond resolution. And that is the agreement that effectively is the mechanism that gets these bond proceeds from the trustee at issuance over to the redeveloper as the redeveloper undertakes and completes and pays for the work that is to be funded by these bonds. Because there are two series of bonds, There are effectively two versions of each of those three agreements. So there are two trust indentures, there are two pledge and assignment agreements, and there are two funding agreements, one for each of the phase 1 bonds and one for each of the phase 2 bonds, all of which are approved by the resolution that you're considering tonight.
And just to be clear, the issuance of the second series of bonds for the phase 2 development is subject to their or the administration's authorization to move forward. So this resolution satisfies the council's legislative responsibilities in terms of approving the issuance of the bonds. But the second bond is not automatically done unless the second project moves forward. Something to that effect.
Yeah, that's correct. Yes, that's correct.
Any questions for Mr. Jessup? All right, let's move forward. Thank you very much, Mr. Jessup. Let's move forward with the vote.
On the adoption of Resolution R-182, 2020, Councilman Elms,
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster,
Yes.
Councilman Iannacone,
No.
Councilwoman Mayer,
Yes.
Councilman Silva,
Yes.
Council President Arlington.
Yes.
Motion carries. Resolution is adopted.
Thank you all. That finishes the regular business. There's one item of unfinished business, just to mention that we will be having nominations for I believe Housing Authority and Parking Authority at the next meeting on December 15th. And the application period, it remains open until the 13th. Is that right, Margot? Or
We're accepting applications for the Housing Authority up until December 8th.
Okay.
That appointment is scheduled for the December 15th meeting. Then there are vacancies in the Parking Authority, Board of Adjustment, and rent leveling. Those will be appointed at reorganization on January 5th, and we're accepting applications for those boards up until December 11th.
Sorry, I missed that last part. The Housing Authority nomination will be on January.
I'm sorry, the Housing Authority appointment will
When's
be.
the Housing Authority nominations?
I'm sorry, say that again.
December 15th. Sorry.
Yeah, that commissioner will be.
Housing Authority is December 15th. Parking Authority is when?
Reorganization January 5th,
Okay.
along with potentially rent leveling and Board of Adjustment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, is there any other new business, any other open items council members want to bring up?
I did mute everyone when we had a feedback. So if anyone has to speak, they would need to unmute themselves, please.
All right, with that, we will motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.
thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everyone.
Can't get out.